of the bill, but I thought that history should be put on record.
I call the Honourable Member Denise Roach. Tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. It's my pleasure to rise on behalf of the Greens to support the Fair Trading Soliciting on behalf of Charities Bill. Donations are the lifeblood of the charitable and not-for-profit sector, and many of New Zealand's 23,000 or so registered charities, and a fair few of the ones that are denied registration because of the narrow definition of charitable purpose in the Charities Act, rely on the goodwill and philanthropy of ordinary New Zealanders digging into their pockets to keep them afloat. The Greens have welcomed this bill because as funding rounds with local authorities and contracts with governments get clawed back and become more difficult, and more charities have moved to professional fundraisers. These are third-party fundraisers who undertake the appeals for the charity, either through collections or through telemarketing, and who charge either a straight fee or, as is more prevalent, take a percentage of all the donations that are pledged. Like many in this House, we too have felt concerned about the lack of clarity over these arrangements. We've been concerned that good-natured philanthropic New Zealanders did not know how much of their donations were being diverted to a private company when most donors give to charity think that the intention is for the charity to use their money for the purposes of the charity's activities. We Greens are great believers in transparency in all things, and so of course we have supported this bill. However, we have been concerned about how this bill would develop, as originally it suggested that donors would only get to know exactly how much of their donation was being diverted to fundraising companies if that company was charging more than 50% of the donation that they pledged, and only know that a proportion was being diverted to the company if the company was taking between 20 and 50% of the donations. We note that the report from the Commerce Committee that heard the submissions on the bill and their comment that there is some complexity involved in setting the threshold that would trigger that transparency, and we do welcome the bill's move to shift the responsibility of the detail around a bit, either through amendments in this committee, in this House as the bill proceeds through to the Committee of the Whole, or through the Minister. These complexities include the fact that some large charitable organisations do incur a higher amount of money spent on fundraising initially as they sign people up on automatic payment forms, which is recouped later on as time progresses, and I note that several members have already mentioned this. I know that this happens with Greenpeace New Zealand. They don't use third-party fundraisers, and as a good, prudent safeguard, they actually keep an eye on what the wages are that they spend on fundraisers compared to the amount of funds that they're fundraising. To my mind, it's a great shame that we have to have a bill like this at all, that good and worthy charitable organisations are forced to rely on the services of some potentially unscrupulous fundraisers to make ends meet. We recognise that in times of recession that the generosity of New Zealanders is under pressure, and that not-for-profit organisations are competing for the charity dollar. So it's doubly disturbing that unscrupulous fundraising companies do exist. That pressure also forces good, worthy charities into the arms of the devil. As the charity dollar reduces and government funding dries up, more and more not-for-profits face the prospect of becoming addicted to funding that's generated through the addiction of others. That is, they start to rely on grants from those pub charities, or if they're lucky, and it is a lottery, excuse the pun, from Sky City. And I'll just note here that Sky City casinos only allocate 2.5% of their profit from gambling to community grants compared to pub pokie machines, which are required by law to allocate 37.1% for community purpose. And despite this, and the fact that The Prime Minister said yesterday during question time that pokies in casinos are 3 times more addictive than the ones in pubs. The trouble with the unscrupulous fundraising companies is that they bring all fundraising into disrepute, and that's why we welcome this bill. We also note that there's more work to be done on the thresholds and around regulation, and we agree with the Honourable Member Rajan Prasad that there is more conversation to be had. In the meantime, however, the Green Party will be supporting this bill. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa.
Thank you. I call the